were striking with the Raven way up east of the PDJ, and one of the two controlling airborne people, either the 121 Air Force thing or the Navy cruiser that tracked us, calls me on the radio on guard and says, Hobo 44, this is Red Crown or whatever the call sign was. You have a hostile target 040 at 40 miles. You're clear to engage. Well, now later, flying the F-4 and the F-15, we did those kind of things. But when I'm this young A-1 pilot, what am I doing again? He says, you got a hostile target, you're clear to engage. And I said, okay. And he said, well, are you Alpha Delta equipped? And I said to Bob Herklotz, my wingman, what's that mean? I have no idea what the guy was talking about. And I said, be specific. And he said, are you air defense equipped? And I said, yeah, we got 8 20-millimeter cannons and 4 pods of rockets. And he said, all right, you're clear to engage. And I said, what's the airspeed of the Bandit? And he says, 65 knots, which tells me it's a helicopter. And I said, okay. So we go racing into North Vietnam at 106. We'd already dropped our CBUs and things, so we're going faster than normal, maybe 160, maybe 170. And we're very, we got 100 miles an hour overtake, basically. Yeah. And it's really hazy. And the guy says targets at 12 miles, targets at 10 miles, targets at 8 miles. And I said to Herc, I said, there's no way we're going to see this guy until we're within 3 miles of him. It was just too hazy. Well, we get about the 5 mile point, and the controller says, target lost contact with the bogey. So what he did was he landed. So we just counted 3 more miles and turned and looked and couldn't see anything. It was a valley, and now people start shooting at us because we're in the middle of North Vietnam. And so we, turn around and start home. The next thing we know, the guy says, you have 2 MiG-17s chasing you. Of course, we're going 170 and they're going 400, so they're catching us very quickly. So we waited till he called them at 5 miles, and we just turned around and pointed at them, and they both tried to turn in on us. And I don't think Bob Herklotz's MiG ever saw him. I could tell my guy saw me because he's turning on me, and I'm thinking, you're not going to shoot me because I'm going to be pointing right at you by the time you get turned around. And so he turns around, and I'm pointed right at him but can't take a shot, and he goes by me, and I turn around and look, and Herklotz pushes the button down on the Lao 3 pod of 19 rockets. Yeah. In ripple, and 19 rockets go out, and this MiG's going like this, and the rockets went right in front of him. And the guy immediately turned, and they turned around and went home, and that was the end of it. But those were 2 crazy missions. It had nothing to do with SARS. It had nothing to do with prairie fires. It had nothing to do with close air support, but shows you how weird it was.
From Burma to a MiG encounter.
To a MiG encounter in the middle of North Vietnam, where I'm chasing a helicopter and thinking, nowhere in my training did anybody ever tell me about how to chase and shoot down the helicopter.
So they must have had radar, yes, knowing that you were coming in after the helicopter. That's probably where the MiGs came from.
Yes. Well, and see, those guys knew where we were and what my call sign was because the Mode 1 IFF, you squawked your call sign. Mm-hmm. And so he knew that was Hobo 44, and so that's how he knew where we were. And that's the way the GCI site, like at NKP, could. And that was good because we'd get in places over there in North Vietnam and Laos where we had no TACAN, and if the weather was bad, where you couldn't see the ground and you couldn't, you didn't have any way of knowing where you were, you could often ask the GCI site, say, give me a quick location from invert was the call sign at NKP of the GCI guys. Say, invert, give me a quick location to home, and the guy would say, 050 at 83 miles. So he knew exactly where you were, and you knew exactly where you were.
That's pretty interesting, because a lot of the guys, as I've been in here, I said, well, did you know where you were? And one of the guys said, hell, if I knew, it was all green. He said, we were just in the middle of green. You'd fly to a heading and a point and whatever.
Yeah.
He said you'd go off of delta points and then TACAN. And now TACAN is it tactical antenna? Is that what that stands for? What is TACAN?
Tactical Air Navigation.
Okay, all right.
TACAN.
Right.
And the TACAN gave you a bearing back to the station and your distance. It's called DME, Distance Measuring Equipment. It gave you bearing and DME. But when you got down low and you were far away from the TACANs, and what happened before I got there used to be a secret site. If you've read Tim Castle's book One Day Too Long, Lima Site 85,
yes.
They had this
Top of that car.
Yeah, they had a SAC RBS, radar bomb system thing, that SAC used to score their airplane training nuke deliveries. It was basically a radar. So it knew exactly where the airplane was, altitude, speed, heading, and if the guy said, I just released, then the RBS would say that's where the bomb's going to hit. And it was very accurate. So we were using it to guide F-4s, F-105s, Navy A-6s in the weather to drop in North Vietnam, and the North Vietnamese had no idea what was going on, what the value of the site. Well, there was also a TACAN on channel on Lima 85, and so when it fell, we lost that TACAN, which meant that, like when Ron Smith flew Oyster, he had no TACAN help at all. It was right on the border, so it would get you into North Vietnam when it was there. But that was either 68 or 69 that fell. So once that was gone, you were
operating
yeah,
without